So it's finally happened. President Trump. Now, I mean, when it happened, I was surprised at how strongly I reacted to it. It was of just this feeling of complete unreality. And when I was looking at it, or when I was watching his acceptance speech, I couldn't look at the screen properly because I was just like, it was just this weird feeling and I just couldn't accept it. But I've kind of gotten over it to an extent. Obviously, I'm still concerned, but I can say President Trump without having convulsions. So the question, of course, now becomes, all right, how does the left react to this? Because that's what we're going to have to be doing if we want there to still be a world after President Trump in 4 years. The best thing we can do is we go state by state. Now, pick an issue, any issue you want. So if it's money in politics, you can go to Wolfpack. They're going state by state to get an national or amendment to the United States Constitution to get money out of politics. We can do that regardless of President Trump, regardless of the judicial branch, regardless of Congress. So it doesn't matter with them. We can do that aside from them. Now, if that's your issue, there you go. Go to that. If climate change, there's stuff that we can do, and we can have our local governments pass more pro-climate or pro-environment legislation. So, for example, in Washington, where I live, unfortunately, it didn't pass, but there was I-732, which basically would have been made Washington the first state to have a carbon tax on polluters. It didn't pass because there was a lot of debate as to whether or not it was the right way to go about it, about whether or not it shifted the financial burden to the working class. And I did vote for it. I'm just going to say that because you guys should know by now how important I take climate change. And I do feel that at the end of the day, we need drastic measures in order to combat it. And I want to see this happen. And I think ultimately, the quicker we get on to green energy, the cheaper it'll become and the safer and the better off we'll all be. So it should pick any subject, any fight, anything you want to kind of go with, and go focus on passing it in your state. The more states that pass whatever us as progressives want done, it handicaps the damage that President Trump can do. So if I don't know, you get like 20 states to start getting carbon taxes in the next 2 years, which will be when the next elections are, then it doesn't really matter if he's anti-environment, if he wants to bring back all these coal, or bring back the coal industry and all these other things that are going to be devastating towards climate change. If it'll matter, but it'll matter significantly less if more states are counteracting that. Remember, the United States is made up of states, so that's more and more of the land mass of the United States focusing more toward positive change, more and more, and less of it will be towards negative change. So that's the best thing I think the left can do during this time, and that's going to mean that in 2 years we need to have, by that time, which means we need to start now, if you want to run for office, if you think you can, and you think that you can be a positive change and that you're going to be a jolt in the establishment, then run. Because we need to completely reform the system. The Democratic Party it doesn't have to go, it has to be reformed. So we can't have people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz in charge anymore. Because her specifically, she basically caused a President Trump. Because her and her cronies pushed Hillary on us. And Hillary is the worst candidate in U.S. history, probably. So we can't have it anymore because we've already seen how they've reacted to this situation for people who thought that they'd wake up after President Trump happens. A lot of them are saying that Tim Kaine should be the next president because he's got so much chutzpah, all that good stuff. A lot of people who are listening to me might not even know who Tim Kaine is. Well, he was the vice president. All right, yeah. He was the running mate of Hillary Clinton. And you were rightful to not know much about him because he was basically a block of wood running as a human being beside Hillary, who was Alex Jones would argue whether or not she's a human being. So apt for a running mate. So that's their reaction. If Tim Kaine runs in 2020, he'll lose. He'll lose to whoever he's running against in the primaries, probably. And which is why, you know what? That's why let the Democratic establishment keep thinking that. Because if we get, say, Elizabeth Warren up there to run against Tim Kaine, it'll be comical how much Elizabeth Warren beats him. It'll be landslide victories, and there you go, Elizabeth Warren in the White House. So please, Democratic establishment, run Tim Kaine. Try to do that against our real progressive candidate. And that's the point, is we need to have a real progressive candidate up against whoever they go for in 2020. But during this whole time, the best thing we can do is force that Democratic Party to change so they stop doing stupid stuff like this. Because they're not going to learn, because they don't care. As long as their bottom dollar is not being affected, they don't really care about there being a President Trump. Now, President Trump might end up affecting their bottom dollar. We'll end up seeing. But we can't trust them. And they're not going to fight. They never do. They're spineless. So we need a Democratic Party with a spine. We need a real left party, even if maybe it's not the Democratic Party. Maybe it's some new party. But we need a true progressive party. So, in terms of government, there you go. That's how I feel the left has the best chance. Now, in terms of on a personal level, I've mentioned this in passing during one of my first videos on this channel, my first political video, which was my response to Amazing Atheist Trump 2016 video. To be fair to him, he has since posted a video where he told people they should vote for Clinton. But in the video, he very obviously was acting like he was forced to, and he didn't really provide good reasons to vote for Clinton. And he certainly wasn't as impassioned as he was for Trump. But I mentioned in that video that things like the anti-SJW movement, I felt, helped create a environment where Trump could thrive. And I think that ultimately is true. Obviously, I don't have empirical data to back this. I would love to do polling on this kind of stuff. But unfortunately, I can't really, at least not do major scientific polling. But consider this a theory. And that, so I feel that a lot of the left very much so suffers on the individual level, on the more personal level, outside of government, from a fractured leadership. So you have on one side the left, who's with TYT, Secular Talk, David Pakman, all these, progressives. And then you have the other side, which is Amazing Atheists, who's kind of like, they're kind of left, but they're not really like that left. And then you have like the side that's like the completely right wing, but still somehow left, Sargon of Akkad people. I mean, Call of Dusty did a video in which he said that he believes that the alt-right has invaded the left. And in that video, he says that he doesn't think Paul Joseph Watson has said anything racist. And we're talking about Paul Joseph Watson, Mr. West is the best guy, and the guy who said that transgender bathrooms weren't okay and that passing laws against them was good because the only people it affected were weird-looking people. So this is a guy who has said racist stuff and has said prejudiced stuff and is an idiot. And I'm okay with calling Paul Joseph Watson an idiot because he is. I don't like him. He annoys me, to say the least. So there's there's this weird thing where the right is on the left now. And Sargon of Akkad, I feel, is kind of like almost the leader of that, where it's almost taboo to call Sargon of Akkad a right-winger. Even though he spent the entirety of election night, after we know that Trump won, making fun of left-wing people for being upset that Trump won, when it doesn't matter if you think that Trump was the better candidate to Hillary. He certainly is not the left-wing candidate, and he's certainly a worrisome candidate. So that's kind of my point, where you get this leadership who ultimately does mostly kind of has a very right-leaning mentality, and they misdirect a lot of the potential left's base anger towards stuff like SJWs, which kind of at this point are, when if they were a thing before in power, which I don't believe they were, and there's no real evidence to back that they were. Now we have President Trump, so it's not really a thing anymore. I don't think Trump gives a rat's ass what Anita Sarkeesian thinks, or any of these people. So it's kind of, there you go. Like, SJWs are not really, they're even less of an issue than they were before, and they really weren't an issue before. They were an annoyance at best. But now they're not even an annoyance at this point. They're like a speck on the wind. They're like, did I hear something? Did I hear an Anita Sarkeesian video on the wind? Who's Anita Sarkeesian? But here we are. Still, I mean, even Sargon recently posted a video called Trump Salt Mining Inc. Something stupid like that. And in it, he shows a picture of Anita Sarkeesian because somehow Anita Sarkeesian relates to the Trump presidency. And that's kind of my point, because after all this, that's still what he's concerned with, and that's what he's going to talk about is SJWs, not the fact that Trump is going to repeal Obamacare, that he's extremely anti-environment, that he's potentially a sexual predator, or is really a sexual predator. Yeah, I mean, he's going to freaking court for it soon. He's going to the court for Trump University. Sargon's literally said that Trump is not evil. I don't care if you think Hillary is evil, because Trump certainly is also evil. They're both evil. How about that? Let's compromise there. All this stuff that Trump's going to do that has a very real effect on normal lives, and SJWs are still the topic of the day. And I think that Amazing Atheist is going to do much of the same thing. But in terms of Amazing Atheist, it's a little bit different, because he's kind of, I would argue he's more right-wing than he thinks he is, but the main harm he does towards the left and people like him is that there's this whole during the whole election, the mentality was, this election sucks, I'm not going to vote. Now, it's fair to say the election sucks, it's not fun, but to tell people and to encourage that mentality of not voting and to just not go and vote yourself, that doesn't tell me anything about why you should be a leader of the left, why you're an important name. Because no movement has ever made any ground by not fighting because stuff sucks. I mean, he recently moved to Washington, and there were several great things he could have voted on that weren't the election, or certainly a lot more compelling than between Hillary or Trump. So the fact that he just didn't vote, you just didn't do anything, and you're not a progressive. You're really not a progressive. You're just kind of like a lazy left, and I guess that's like a new term I'm creating. So there's the lazy left people, and I think that's what he is. And lazy left people shouldn't be progressive leaders. So, and I know when Sargon, if Sargon or any of his fans or Amazing Atheist fans see this video, they're gonna accuse me of wanting to silence their voices, and that's not really true. I mean, I find both Amazing Atheist and Sargon and a lot of these skeptics to be very grating people, but I don't believe that their voices should be silenced. They should be free to say whatever they want. It's just, I'm saying, go say what you want, but over there, on the right side of the fence. Go over there. I'm on the left, you stay on the right, you're fine over there. In the words of the immortal Patrick, or in the words of immortal Sandy Cheeks, can't you go be stupid somewhere else? And then in the words of Patrick, not until 4. And that's basically, that sums up the situation with the left on the internet community, is they need to go be stupid somewhere else, basically. And so, yeah, so I think that's just important because we need that energy to be directed towards real change instead of the fake change, or not non-change, just fake boogeymen threats like SJWs and the various other things that Sargon and a lot of the skeptic community is going to push. So watch TYT. Nah. I mean, if you don't want to watch TYT, that's fine. There's many other, good voices out there. I mean, if you don't like the actual network TYT, I mean, there's people on it that are good that some people kind of will like instead of TYT. There, a lot of people like secular talk over TYT. There's a lot of people like David Pakman, Jimmy Dore. I mean, there's all these voices out there. Just watch who you're listening to and think about your priorities about what we're going to be doing for these next 4 years, about how we're going to deal with the fact that the Republicans are in control of everything, and they have a person in charge who will sign off on whatever they want, and they're going to do whatever damage they want. We need to be fighting. We need to be proactive. And if we do that, we can actually do a lot of good, and we can do a lot towards making Trump's presidency be mostly a lame duck. But it's all going to depend on how we react. So get progressives in charge. If you want to run for office, make a serious run at it if you think you can make a change. And the left needs to focus on cleaning up their narrative and getting the elements that are actually right wing out and push them into the right. Sargon and people like that need to be on the Paul Joseph Watson side of the fence. Amazing Atheists can be like on the fence somewhere, I don't care. But Sargon and like those people in those group need to be over there, and there needs to be an understanding that that's not us.